Hello, in this video I'll be going through the basics of Middle Eastern fencing, specifically single sword. Before I begin, there needs to be a few caveats to the system. The implication is that the system is used the same with a shield and there are no sword guards. Indeed, everything is done in drills and forms called bans. The system became formalized in the 9th century and survived until modernity. With that out of the way, let's start. Footwork. It's important to emphasize that there are basics, but the underlying assumption is these need to flow together on an ad hoc basis. So I'll try to be very brief with systematizing as not to destroy the spirit of the fencing system. Also, the use of footwork doesn't favor one particular foot being forwards. Naturally, the adjacent leg to your main hand will be forwards a lot of the time, but also get used to having the opposite leg being forwards as well as when you engage, just in case. Footwork can be divided between shuffling steps. This is when the front foot moves forwards or backwards a step and the rear foot follows. It can be done with either foot being the main one. Traverse stepping. This is akin to how a person normally walks, with each foot alternating, depending on if you're moving backwards or forwards. Swivel stepping. This is when the entire step rotates the person 180 degrees with each step to keep one side dominant. Hopping. This is mentioned in treatises like Jalmi al-Funun, termed a leap, or is seen in Al-Matreg, a stick fighting game in the Iran province of Algeria, who I believe are the continuing tradition of Furusiyya. This is used to bridge distance, back away, or chamber blows. Deviating from this somewhat, movements are translated both to mounted and dismounted combat. With that being said, diagonal stepping is also used to supplement leaning to the sides while saddled on horseback. With this being said, lunging doesn't really exist. Instead, the implication is that the person shifts body weight from one foot to the other, like being on horseback. If they want more reach, they widen their stance, exaggerating the shifting. I tend to find that being slightly bent at the knees helps, but as the engagement shifts, you will either need to straighten or crouch depending on the circumstance. Basic cuts. Basic cuts are taken from Al-Matreg and help conceptualize the fencing system. I can also testify that a lot of the plays from translated treatises work in the same way. This is summarized by 4 blows: a right horizontal cut to the side of the head, a left horizontal cut to the side of the head, an upwards cut to the chin, a downwards cut to the top of the head. The upwards cut can be done with either the front or rear edge. These 4 basic blows form the basis of all other blows, to the extent that diagonal blows in between are dependent on the same dynamics. This means that when doing diagonal blows, they work in the same way, within the same combinations. At the end of the day, strikes in this system operate a lot on the basis of succession strikes in the opposite direction, right to left, up to down, etc. This results in an easy to pick up fencing system, which is simple in a lot of ways because everything is understood as being the same mechanics as these 4 blows. This also takes into account level changes, so can vary depending on your target. With that being said, the basics also shift with target areas, depending on what you're aiming at, and the main target should be the head, neck, hands, armpits, and legs, upper or lower depending on the target. This means that the strikes are the same, just that the elevation changes. It's also important to emphasize that chambering the first blow is usually inverted, where the wrist is in the opposite direction to the direction of the cut. This is for a number of reasons. The first is that it enables a person to cover or parry before striking. The second is that the hand naturally finishes inverted after doing a cut. The third, and more interesting reason, is that it somewhat enables the hand to align with the cut when it twists. Additionally, thrusting does exist in the system. It's used as a setup for the exchange, but if it lands the first time, great. Finally, the upwards cut can be accompanied by a hop to chamber the blow. Basic parries. The basic parries are adjacent to the 4 basic cuts. A parry to the left, a parry to the right, a parry downwards, and a parry upwards. The left or right parries can either be standard or hanging parries. Both are used depending on circumstances. For cuts to the leg, these are parried by simply meeting the blow halfway on either side. Just a quick note, cuts are divided between half cuts and full cuts. Parrying exercise. A good exercise for cutting and parrying is the following. cut to the right side and do a hanging parry on the same side, cut to the left side and do a hanging parry on the same side, cut downwards and do an upwards parry. These exercises create a flow that transitions to each other, meaning you can do these indefinitely. With that being said, it is an exercise and not to be obsessed about. Mix up the moves and parries to get comfortable with drilling. In future videos, I will be showing drills from some treatises in order to assist reconstruction.